Hello crafters, this is Yana Smakula for SimonsSTM.com. Welcome back for another Yeepy for Yana episode. All supplies I'm using for this project are listed and linked in the video description below. In this video, I have a birthday card to share that I created for my travel bestie. I have two girlfriends who have become my travel besties in 2023. We've gone on several trips together, and every time we get together, to have coffee or something, the main thing that we talk about is where are we going to travel next? When is the next airplane tickets sale? In what cool places we can travel to explore? And one of these girlfriends, her birthday is coming up soon, and so I decided it would be really fun to create a travel theme birthday card for her. I searched my stash for stamp sets that would work for the idea that I had in mind, and I found several older sets from Simon. I just showed them on the screen, and I'll talk more about each set as I use the stamps from each of them. So let's go ahead and start working on our card. So here I have a sheet of cardstock. This is Sunshine cardstock from Simon Says Stamp. And what I want to do is I want to ink blend a giant sun in the upper portion of this panel. The panel is cut to 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches. It will become the front of my card, and that's where I'll add all of my other elements on top. That's where I'll do my stamping and where I'll add the die cuts. I also have a circle mask here from Simon Says Stamp. This is the largest circle mask in this set, and I have used Best Ever Craft Tape from Spellbinders to tape my paper onto my glass mat and also tape the stencil onto the paper. I'm going to add some ink blending to create that large sun. And I have several colors of ink. I'm starting with SHERBET. I'm using the large Simon Says Stamp blending brushes, and I'm going to ink blend this orange closer to the bottom of the sun, and then I'm going to add some red at the top of the sun to have a little bit of color variation. You can just as easily do one color of ink. If you don't have this mask, you can even die cut a circle and maybe add another color of colored cardstock on top of your sunshine background. It doesn't have to be ink blended. I have these masks. I think they're brilliant, so I figured, I'm going to use the masks. So next, I'm using watermelon ink from Simon Says Stamp to add a little bit of the darker red. And I'm using that color to transition between a darker red that I'm about to use, lipstick red, and the orange color that I just used. So I'm coming in with a pretty heavy hand. I want a very saturated ink application. I'm making sure that I am adding a ton of ink onto my background just because I want to have a very vibrant, a very defined sun on my panel. So I'm switching between the ink pads, going back to the watermelon ink to ink blend the transition between the lipstick red and the SHERBET. Going back to SHERBET to add one last layer of ink, and now we can remove the panel and reveal our beautiful sun. I love how impactful this ink blending is on the background. So next, I have my mini MISTI stamping tool. I've placed the panel inside the MISTI, and I'm going to do some stamping. First, I have a happy birthday sentiment, and this one comes from Put Your Party Hats On stamp set. Next, I have Let's Get This Party Started, and this one comes from that same stamp set. I also have a little sub-sentiment that reads Book a Flight, and the Book a Flight sentiment was actually created by doing some fussy cutting, or I should say stamp surgery. So what I did, I used two different stamp sets from Miss You, MISSY stamp set from Kathy Zelsky. There are two tiny sentiments in there that read, let's book a play date, and that's it, I'm booking a flight. So what I did is I did some stamp surgery, and I basically cut out a sentiment that reads, let's book a flight. So my sentiment on the card says, let's get this party started. Let's book a flight. And then the very bottom sentiment, that smallest one, comes from yet another stamp set, and that one is Let's Get Away stamp set, and it reads, The beach is calling my name. Last time we got together and last time we talked about our next travel destination, we talked about going to an island for, a summer vacation. So I thought that this sentiment was particularly fitting. I'm using VersaFine ONYX black ink to stamp all of these, and this ink gives me a nice black, crisp black impression on my panel. Okay, we're going to set the panel aside and work on some other stamping. Here, I want to stamp several elements that I will color and cut out and then add onto my background. So here I have a beach umbrella, a beach chair, a sun hat, and also a bottle of SPF and a glass with a cocktail. And these images are all very fitting. They sort of remind us about our previous vacation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to color these using Copic markers or alcohol markers. I did my stamping using Simon Says Stamp Intense Black ink, which is the alcohol marker friendly ink. And I did the stamping on Nina Solar White. This is 80-pound cardstock. I picked pinks because I wanted to keep this card somewhat monochromatic, not totally monochromatic because I do have the yellow and the orange in the background. And then I'm using pinks to color all of these images. For my colors, I started with the RV00. This is my latest pink. And then I'm adding a little bit of shading, a little bit of darker pink using the RV10. And then in some cases, I also come in with the RV11 and even with RV13. And even RV14. I'd only use the RV14 for the cocktail to have that nice dark pink color. So these are the only colors that I'm using to color the umbrella, the beach chair, and also the party hat. You can really focus on your coloring. I kept my coloring very simple because this card is not about the coloring. The card is about the sentiments. It's about the messages that it says. So I kept the coloring very simple and I just used several of my go-to markers. Next, I'm using browns. I have E33 and E37 to color the wood on the beach chair and also the stick on the umbrella. These are all older stamp sets and you can find a lot of different inspiration online for these. So if you want to see other color ideas, how you can color these, you can just easily go to Simon Says Stamp website or go on Pinterest, type up the name of the stamp set, and you'll be able to see loads of different examples. In fact, I even have some examples on my YouTube channel and blog, and also on the Simon Says Stamp YouTube channel, where I'm sharing 4 different card ideas using this stamp set, and I'm also creating different scenes with this set. Next, I'm using E11 marker to color the hat. It's a very beige color, but I kind of felt like it was fitting here. And then I'm once again using pinks to color the ribbon on the hat. I am coming in with a C1 marker and using that to add a little bit of shadow under the umbrella and also to help define the white sections of the umbrella. And then using a colorless blender to blend that all out. I don't want to have any harsh lines, and using a colorless blender certainly helps with that. Using Y35 to color the SPF bottle, and then adding that same yellow onto the top of my glass and also onto the orange slice. Next, using RV14 for the bottom of my glass. I'm mixing a cocktail here in case you did not pick that up. And then using RV13 in the middle. I'm going to come back to my yellow and use that to blend the colors together so that I have a little bit of orange as a transition color. And there I have a delicious little cocktail for my beach party. Also adding a little bit of shadow using a C1 marker to the cap of the SPF bottle. I'm going to pop this panel back into my mini MISTI stamping tool. I have capped the stamps the way they were on the lid of my MISTI, and I'm going to re-stamp them using a darker black. This is once again VersaFine ONYX black ink. I did not stamp using this ink before because it is not Copic marker friendly. So what I did is I first stamped using a Copic marker friendly. I colored images with Copics, and now I'm re-stamping the outlines to have the black colors match on my card. There are coordinating dies available for these little adorable images, so I used mine and I cut them out in my Platinum 6 die cutting and embossing machine. Now I also cut blanks for the chair and the umbrella, And I'm adding these behind my colored die cuts using glue. I'm doing this to have sturdier die cuts. The umbrella is particularly dainty, especially the pole of the umbrella. So I wanted to make sure that I had a little bit of extra sturdiness added to this die cut. So I'm just using glue and sticking the two pieces together and then setting them on my work surface, adding a magnet on top to let the glue dry. Okay, it's time to assemble our card. I went ahead and I added the background onto an A2 top folding card base. And what I have here, I have several gray markers. I'm using warm gray markers, so W3 and W1. And what I want to do is I want to create some indentations in the sand. So the yellow cardstock, that represents sand. And the umbrella and the chair are going to be sitting in the sand. And of course, these objects, they disturb the sand. So we have some shadows in the sand, and I can create those shadows by using my markers. So I just scribbled a little bit of the W3 and W1 marker over the yellow cardstock to create that shadow. You can be very intentional. You can use a stencil and even ink blend a shadow if you want your shadow to have a certain shape. But I did not really care much for how the shadow looked. I just needed to create the shadow to help ground the elements on this card. Next, I'm using a white pen. This is Sakura Jelly Roll pen in size 0.8, and I'm just adding some dots. I find that this helps add interest to the sand, so I'm just adding a little bit of dots here and there. You can think of the dots as seashells in the sand. Okay, now we can go ahead and add our objects. I am using foam adhesive squares because I always want to pop my elements up on the card. I've added foam adhesive squares behind the umbrella. I've added that onto my background at an angle. I've added the chair overlapping the umbrella. I've added the sun hat. I have it sitting or resting against the umbrella. And I'm just going to add my little cocktail next to the umbrella. And of course, do not forget to add the SPF. I'm using my Sakura Jelly Roll pen to add a couple of highlights to the cocktail drink and also to the SPF bottle. I wanted to do one more thing before I finish this card. I wanted to stamp a kind of snarky sentiment on the inside of my card. So I used the SASSY Flaps stamp set from Kathy Zilski, and I picked the sentiment that reads, "If you only knew how many hours went into this, pretty sure you'd think twice about tossing it." And then another sentiment reads, "From your crafty AF friend." My crafty bestie, she also teaches English to adults. She has her own language school here in Ukraine. So she will appreciate these sentiments more than anyone. So I'm just using VersaFine ONYX black ink and stamping that on the inside of my card base. And this finishes my card. I had a blast making it. You know, I always try to make personalized cards for the people that I know, but I don't always have the opportunity. This time, I kind of had time to plan this project ahead of time. I had time to execute it, and I had absolute blast making the project. I cannot wait to see the look on her face when I give her the card, and I hope she enjoys it. Thank you so much for spending time with me today. I hope you feel inspired to create. Go play with your supplies. Think of your bestie, you know, maybe her birthday is coming up, and think about a birthday card, a themed birthday card that you can create. If you do make a project inspired by this, please share online and please tag us. We'd all love to see what you make. Thanks so much for spending time with me today. Love you guys, and I'll see you next time.
Hi there, I'm Heidi, Simon's mama and founder at SimonsSaysStamp.com. Thank you so much for watching our video. If you like what you just saw, be sure to press the thumbs up and subscribe to see more great content.